Sue Moroney.
Thank you, Mr Chair. I want to refer to the contribution previous to the one that we've just heard, because that was the sound of the National Party, of the government abandoning its responsibility towards the citizens of New Zealand, who all they want to do is have a decent life. That was the sound of what we had from there, because the truth is that this bill is about flogging off state assets and, more importantly, doing it in a way that actually affects the most vulnerable in our society. And I think the National Party should be ashamed of this bill. They should be ashamed of their track record when it comes to housing, both the housing crisis that they've presided over in Auckland that's now moving around the country, and their shameless going back to their bad old ways of selling off state housing. Because let's face it, we've been here before. We've absolutely been here before. And I remember in the 1990s standing around state houses in Waharoa, one of the poorest communities in the Waikato, forming a human chain to stop those houses from being picked up in the middle of the night and transported by that government up to Auckland so that they could flog them off for more money than what they were worth in the poor community of Waharoa, while the residents of Waharoa lived in garages, lived in cars, lived 3 or 4 families to a 3-bedroom house. Well, we're seeing that being repeated all over again. So, Mr Speaker, Mr Chair, I particularly want to talk about the commencement date, clause 2 of this bill, because it says that the Act comes into force on the day after the date on which it receives the royal assent. Now, assuming that this passes through the House in a timely fashion, that means that that's going to happen sometime this year. The timing could not be worse. For communities like Hamilton, the timing could not be worse, because what's occurring as we speak is that government's failure to address the housing crisis in Auckland is now spreading to the rest of the country. And one of the first communities to be hit by that has been the city of Hamilton. So what's happening currently is Aucklanders can't afford housing in their own city, so they are moving to cities like Hamilton, where the housing's not cheap, but it's more affordable than what it is in Auckland. And what that is doing, Mr Chair, is that means that the housing prices are shooting up steeply in Hamilton, making those houses more unaffordable for people who already live in the city. But worse than that, the rental prices are following suit. Yeah. So the rental prices...
Order. I'm just going to remind the member that we are debating the title and the commencement date, and there is some latitude, but members do have to address the bill.
Thank you for that, that guidance, Mr Chair. I'm attempting to describe why the timing of what the government is doing affects this community so badly, because right now in Hamilton, rents are going up at such a high rate that the people at the lowest end of the rental market can't afford those increases. They can't afford those increases. They need more state housing, because that's the contract that we've had with New Zealanders, that the Crown has had with New Zealanders for decades, is that there will be that safety net, that there will be a safety net for people to be able to live in decent housing, and that's what this bill is abandoning. It's abandoning the government responsibility towards that. Well, it does, Mr Bishop, it absolutely does, because, and I will refer to the title now, it's the social housing reform. We don't talk about state housing any longer. This government refuses to call it state housing because they don't want the state to be involved in it at all. So it's now called social housing reform because they are washing their hands of it, and it's in the title, Mr Bishop. It's absolutely in the title that you will refuse to call it state housing anymore because you simply don't care about the government having any responsibility in this. And so the title gives it away. It gives it away, Mr Bishop. Social housing reform, Transaction Mandate Act, as if, Mr Chair.
Jamie Lee Ross.
Move that the question be now put.